morning. Hello. Thank you all for being here. I'm Natasha Kukumanos, Vice President of Nano-Ojas Inc. And today we're talking with Dr. P.R. Raghavan, President and CEO and Chairman of Nanorex, and also Kate Lewis, the first female executive and president of BioLife 4D. They're a biotech pioneer leveraging advances in tissue engineering to print 3D human organs viable for transplant. Kate, I want to switch it off to you. Can you share a little bit more about your background?
Welcome, everyone. And I have the pleasure of being a good friend of Dr. Raghu's, and I was introduced to Nano-Ojas about a couple of years ago. We both have come from pharmaceutical backgrounds, and for many years, 20 plus, going maybe into 30 at some points in time. And so we've both seen how the medical field has evolved to the point where we actually have to take self-preservation with our own health. And through discussions that I've had with Dr. Raghu and looking at Metadichol and the profile and the effects that it has on the body are quite profound. And so your body will heal itself. And so I bring the expertise of not only in the medical space, but also from the being from the healthcare and observing moving into wellness, overall wellness. And so I'm happy to be a part of the journey, and it's a complement to everything that I'm working on right now.
We refer to Dr. Raghavan a little bit more casually, so you might hear us refer to him as Raghu. So Raghu, share a little bit about your background. You're a fellow OSU alumni. Tell us more.
So I did my master's in IIT Bombay, 72, came to OSU in January 73, graduated, did organic chemistry PhD, finished in 78. Then I spent 2 years in Max Planck Institute in Germany. Then I was in Columbia University. Then I worked for Novartis and then Boehringer Ingelheim. And one fine day I said, there has to be a better way. And that's when my journey started in 1996, actually. It's now 30 years, clearly. But
Excellent.
The idea of creating Nanorex and the product happened a decade later, in 2008. So that's when it really started.
Wonderful. And, we're going to get into it. The purpose of this interview today is really to learn more about how Metadichol came to be, how you discovered this formula, kind of those touch points that led you to this remarkable discovery that's affecting the lives of countless people around the world. And I too have a very personal journey with this, and I know Kate does too, and we'll share a little bit about that later. But when we first started introducing this to people, it really filled a void, through their suffering. And I want to preface this interview by saying that, this product is not a drug. It's not intended to cure, diagnose, treat any kind of disease. Everything that we share are really like opinions and testimonials from other people, meant to be for educational purposes. And this formula is really about supporting the body so it can naturally go through the processes of clearing things out and healing itself. And it's a food. That's what the beauty of this product is. It's simple, but then there's also the very complex piece to it as well. So let's dive into it. Raghu, can you share a little bit about where we can find this research? And, people have asked us like, oh, are there clinical studies or these third-party studies? So tell us a little bit about, the research and how you go about conducting all of that.
So basically, one of the things, I did anyway, having worked in pharma, and they always spoke about double-blind studies, which I know is not kosher because this is a law of man. You got to follow the law of nature as far as we are concerned. That means a drug or potentially a should work on everybody. That's the law of nature. That's why we can drink water. It has the same effect on all of us. So, or breathe air, the right air. So one of the first things I did was that, having worked in pharma, even though we could have scaled up much more quickly, I said, we're going to do this differently, which is to have a virtual company. And then given the rise of the internet, it was much easier to source service providers. So we have service providers from all over the world. So We send out ideas that this is what I want done. People come back with quotes and we send the product out. They don't know what it is. So it's actually verification by third parties. So all the work we report is done by third parties.
You hold 3 patents in the United States. This formula is patented in nearly every country around the world. I feel like every year you're getting more and more patents. And was it the fastest patent approval in the history of United States patents? Did I hear that correctly somewhere?
Our third patent was filed, became public as a patent application, which is, patent application A. This was in September 18th of 2014. And interestingly, October 7th, they approved the full patent.
Wow.
Normally, it takes 2-3 years. So in 19 days, I got a call, says his patent is approved, blah, blah, blah. I said, we send the letter, and in about 2 weeks, we'll get the letter. And that was the fastest patent grant in US history. We beat Tesla and we also beat Thomas Alva Edison.
Oh my goodness. And
So
Kate, with your background in the pharma world and regulatory, looking at, clinical studies and looking at papers and the research, what really gravitated you in the research? What kind of stood out when you were looking at Dr. Raghavan's work?
Well, my experience of being in pharma and actually writing clinical trial papers as well, so gave me a little bit more of a reach of understanding of what is encompassed of writing a clinical trial and having it meet the audience of physicians and healthcare professionals looking at it. And with Raghu's, interesting, he formulates the papers so that it's conducive to looking at the results in a fair fashion. And so the trials that Raghu has put together somewhat mimics let's just say the format that the healthcare professionals are used to looking at. It's just that it makes the results so much more dynamic because they're so profound. And we're looking at values and we're looking at different things, and it's remarkably glowing how the results are very positive. And he didn't have to slight the studies, which sometimes does happen in the medical space. So I understood the formats and became very clear to me after reading a couple hundred of his reprints that he has.
Yeah, so you can find that ResearchGate has a lot of his papers on that
all
website.
The papers. We have all the papers, all the patents.
And the patents, yes. And also on our website, Nano-Ojas.net, underneath the Learn tab, you'll find more about Dr. Raghu's background, all of the patent information, and we've also put all of his research on there as well. And so tell us a little bit about what Metadichol is about. What were the initial moments that kind of led you to this focus on the essence of the nano-emulsion, perhaps bringing it back to when you visited your family in India and discovered that there's something in the power of this raw sugar, the wax of these plants that people have been eating for ages. What led you to initially think about, oh, well, there's something about polycosnol that's powerful?
So you got to go back in terms of my first exposure idea when I left the pharma is, see, in pharma, we spend a lot of time doing toxicology studies, which takes up 8 to 10 years. So how do you shorten that time? The answer to me was very simple. Start with a non-toxic compound. So what is a non-toxic compound? Immediately, it's food, all the food we eat. So there has to be something there. And as luck would have it, there was a lecture at the New York Academy of Sciences of this MD, PhD from Harvard, who sort of retired, and he was now in the area of natural products and natural healing and so on. And he made a profound statement, which was that he says in his lifetime, there will be a product which will replace all drugs. That's the words he used. So everybody laughed and clapped and, they had the wine after that. But that word stuck in my head. And that was the first seed that, that somebody is thinking that's possible, even though maybe it was only one person. So the answer I knew was in the food, because Hippocrates said, he who does not understand food cannot heal the diseases of men. So I think that's the next connection. So all the doctors take oath in Hippocrates and they forget that piece. So fast forward to 2000, when I think the first genome sequence by Craig Venter came out, and they'd expected there'll be a lot of targets to genes to hit, and everybody will be busy for the next 1,000 years. No? It turned out not to be the case. There was only like 20,000 genes we have, out of which 3% actually do something. So that's down to 600 genes that really do something. Whereas the number of genes, a rice has, a grape has, is much more than ours. Even though they're shorter, there are much more genes than us. Because over time, life has become smart. So instead of having so many genes, they made it less and less genes and more efficient genes. That's how we evolved in that sense. So that's where we began. And then in 2005, when I was in India, my only surviving uncle, because people till then used to talk about, if you had a problem, it's genetic. I don't think it's very rare cases it's genetic now. Mostly it's epigenetic, the changes that happen. But anyway, my uncle was 93, 94 at that time, and he was only surviving among my uncles, and there are quite a few aunts. And if you believe the genetic theory that everything came from the genes, my grandfather lived to be 97, my grandmother was 98, and how did all this disease pattern happen in one side of the family? None of my aunts was healthy, They lived okay, but the quality of life was different. So that's when, he said, what's the difference between the brothers and the sisters here? He says the brothers are very disciplined, with the exception of one. He passed away a little earlier, like 65 or so. They were disciplined about food, unprocessed food. And he referred that he never took sugar. He took jaggery, he never ate polished rice, unpolished rice straight from the village. Salt was unprocessed salt. So he went for a walk. He went in the sun. Fast forward to the same evening, See, this is why I think somebody planned it. It's not me, but the powers of the universe planned it.
Mm-hmm.
I meet this guy who comes with a friend of his who happens to be a doctor, and he happens to be a doctor in a sugarcane company. There are 150 workers and 45 people in the executive. And he asked me a question which was the source of all the inspirations. By the way, my uncle also said there's a temple in India where they worship jaggery, and that's for another part of the sequence. So this guy said the workers did not have much of any infectious disease, chronic disease, but the executive had. I said, what's the difference? Well, the executive ate refined sugar, but the workers ate unrefined sugar. That's when I made the connection. There's something in the sugar. I knew what it was as a chemist. And that was where we began Nano-Ojas.
And unrefined jaggery is like unrefined sugar. And jaggery is something that's used commonly in Indian cooking as a replacement to refined sugar.
But the jaggery sold in India was still not the same as the polycane sugar.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
That's the second piece of the puzzle that this Colombian engineer finished. He developed the process where you can retain the polycostinol in the sugar.
Yes. And, you brought up the Vaideshwaran temple in India, and this has a pretty interesting history. I mean, we talk about this formula being, something of the ancient world, and it's kind of you've brought it back in this new way that our bodies recognize, and they remember this nutrient in a way that the body's able to absorb it at a cellular level and utilize it efficiently. And the temple connection is really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How there was something in the water?
This temple that exists in South India, it's about 5,600 years old. And the mythology of the temple is that you worship, it's a Shiva temple. I don't know if you know in India, but all the Shiva temples in India from north to south are in a straight line. I don't know how they figured it out, but it's all in a straight line. This was 5,600 years later. But they believed it cures 4,448 diseases. So if you have a disease, people would go to the temple, they will take the jaggery and put some salt in it, pray, and put it in a pond there, the temple pond. And interestingly, he told me that the temple pond, no bacteria grows there. That's how we know it's anti-infective. The people. So the British who looked at it dismissed it as pure nonsense. And the Americans actually came in the 60s and said, looked at the water and said it's not possible. They didn't even do any other experiment. But this guy told me that this is what the story. This is later. This is in 2016. But I'd already started the work. So we have done gene expression studies at University of Virginia. We spent over a year on it. And based on the genes expressed, in fact, we have expressed 750 important genes, which is 3% of the human genome, pretty much very close to where we are. So we are expressing the entire human genome in a way. So it was not surprising to me that it should work on other diseases. The only thing was we need to prove it. I mean, the numbers we got were 4,955 diseases that we could target theoretically. So I was looking at the discrepancy in the numbers, and I figured out how come they're different. It just turns out there's the age. One was predicted in 5,600 years ago, one was today. And what had happened in between is that many of the Westerners have named diseases after themselves. Alzheimer's, Graves' disease, Hashimoto. So I said the only way is I began striking out. It took me 3 months to strike out everything, and put a number on it. And I got 4,448. I said, wow. I said, at least I know how I got the number, but I don't know how they got that number. But that was the first piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle was the jaggery that is produced even today in the rest of the world is not the same. It does not contain polycosanol.
Mm-hmm.
But the temple had never left the secret of how they made the jaggery. And it was a Colombian guy who saw my paper. Here he was already working on it to retain the polycosanol. And what he did in Costa Rica, is a plant there, it's working, he calls it polycane. He found that the sugar had very positive effects on the horses he raises, and also people with blood sugar, HbA1c, hypertension, pains, aches, and here and there. It seems to work. And he didn't know why. And he didn't want to, because he was not a clinical guy. That's when he saw my papers and we became good friends. So the way they do it is to cut the sugar and process within 3 hours. If you cut a plant, the biochemical process in the plant stops and slowly begins to degrade. But he cut it and immediately processed. So that's the story. So he made the sugar. I made the component of the sugar. Now the temple is there and the story is complete.
Why is it named Metadichol? Why did you decide to name the patent formula Metadichol?
Because when we did the research, the gene expression studies, and how it works, I said it works methodically. So if you do the anagram, it becomes metadichol.
Okay.
It's methodical in its actions. So the anagram is metadichol.
And oftentimes people discover the formula because they want to use it for one particular thing, and they might feel that, okay, it's not helping right away with that one thing, but that's because it has a methodical process where there's other things that it's working on clearing out of the body or restoring balance. And then it becomes kind of this cascade effect where one thing gets balanced or fixed in a sense, and then it impacts the other various issues to bring that body back to homeostasis.
Sure.
So it's a smart molecule that has this like knowing of where to go, what to do. And oftentimes, like early on when I was first introduced to the formula, the only before and after photos we had were diabetic wounds. And they were impressive because what I knew of them, people would have to get amputations. They've had these wounds that weren't healing for months or even longer. And then I would see, the before and after photos of these wounds. And it was pretty remarkable how this little spray was healing up these wounds, and these people didn't have to get amputated. I mean, it was saving their limbs. So that itself kind of blew my mind. And I was like, there has to be something to this. And that was early on in my healing journey before, we even started selling Nano-Ojas here. That was in 2014. But yeah, I know, Kate, you've had some people start using it for various skin issues as well with pretty great results, and haven't been using it for very long. Is that correct?
No, I usually see results within It depends on how much, if they're consistently using it, which is the main thing. Metadichol won't, if you're not going to be using it on a consistent basis, it's like the seed. You add your seed to the body so they can heal itself. So the first thing that I always stress to them is just make sure you keep up on it so your compliance is there. So then you can get the better results from it. So some patients, everybody responds a little bit differently from what I've experienced, but if they had in the severity of the cascade of healing that needs to happen too within the body or within the area, but you'll see within 24, 48 hours, 2 weeks, you'll start to see this progression of getting improvement. And along with that is patients your body will heal itself as long as if you aid with it wanting to heal. So it's your momentum to treat yourself as well. So it's the attitude that you take along with this. It's not just the spray. You look at this thing, well, this can't work, but you really have to give it a chance that it will work. Your body will be receptive to it. So there's a lot of things that goes into the components of when you go to treat someone, as far as saying it's their will that has to be a part of it, as well as being utilization of it, and let it heal itself. It goes into the 48 nuclei and actually goes in, does the titration of where it needs to attend to first. And then it slowly but surely starts to repair, so that results are there if there's consistency, for sure.
See, the way to look at it is it's like a seed, the seed of life. So the seeds, you can get seeds from the plants and store it forever. Nothing happens. No plant grows or no flower grows. But the minute you put it in the soil, you have the ecosystem when it begins to flower. So nano is like that. If you just have a bottle, it'll be there. It'll be there forever. But the minute you put it in, you have now created the ecosystem. It recognizes the ecosystem because it was part of nature, you see. Lipids were the first molecules that formed the outer layer of the cell. And things like polycosanol or some form of polycosanol were the outer layer that built this house. Into that house went all the amino acids and other things and mitochondria, and the cell developed. So this guy became the guardian of that cell. So he could warn the cell and say something is coming, be ready. So lipids are, people talk about RNA, DNA, but I think lipids were the original carriers of life. They made life possible. Even today, when, two people meet and shake hands, we are basically exchanging energies. If the energies coincide, it's a hit off. If they don't, depending on the amount, then you didn't hit it off. This is exactly what happens. So we see that with the product in the body because frequency is energy. So Nano-Ojas will go into the cell, bind to the different chromosomes. When they bind, energy is released. Energy is frequency. So we know where it binds. So we can actually, if a scientist was there, calculate all the frequencies. I think we sent a recent picture of somebody in Italy, doctor, who made, I don't know if Kate, did you see it?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Send you.
Okay.
They take the aura of the human body, it measures.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes.
And 5 minutes later of nano, you can see how it
Beautiful.
plugs all the holes. So that's exactly what it is.
Okay. Yes.
We communicate to people through our frequencies.
Yeah.
People think it's words. No, those are frequencies.
Right. Do you have an example? Do you have a slide for that showing that? Because I know what you're speaking of now because I saw the visual on it. So
I think I have it. Hold on.
And while Dr. Raghavan's finding that slide, people have told us about the energetic frequency and like the power, the vibration that this formula holds. People have tested it through muscle testing or other bioenergetic scans, or we have people that use various different modalities that are in the line of like energy work, frequency work, light workers, and they tell us that this resonates on such a high level. In the last 7 years, I've never had one practitioner tell me that this does not resonate with their clients or on their scans and testing. And to that note, what Kate said, you have to believe that the product is working. You have to have a level of faith that it's going to support you and help you. I had a friend who started the product. She's gone through a lot of health issues, but she didn't really believe in it. And then, she stopped it. She wasn't really consistent. And then it kind of came back around in her life. At that time, I'd already been talking to her a little bit more about it. She dove into the research. She saw a little bit more of the reviews. She's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then the second time around, when it kind of circled back into her life, she said, I visually can see it almost like repairing my gut. I can feel it working in my body. I feel this connection with it. And honestly, before, when I first started it, I didn't really believe in it. So I feel like it does speak to your cells on an energetic level. And, people have also mentioned that in our reviews, that I feel like this formula is talking to my body in a sense. And I think that's that smart molecule piece, that innate intelligence that it carries.
This is a doctor in Italy this is the work he does with one of the Italian distributors. And that guy's very interested. I don't know, his brother or some relative. And they do it with each and every patient. He sent me other ones today. I haven't even looked at it, but we see the pattern, how it changes. In fact, here you see this is our aura function. So here you see in the top right, all the holes of the aura from the environment. And this you see after 5 minutes, how it's protecting you,
Right. So Raghu, I have seen this before. So what are we calling this? And when you say, what tests are they performing with this?
What do you mean call it? This is at a macro level.
Okay.
Then he looks at the micro level, at different organs,
Okay.
Interesting.
But the first part is the macro level. It protects you right from the physical outside. Okay. Then the changes that then happen on the inside, which is also he has sent me. I will be sharing it soon in the next week or so. But the key is how it plugs all the holes and protects you from external forces.
Yeah, it looks like they used a bioresonance device to do the scan.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to the follow-up data on this.
So that's what it is. So, a few others, I'm going to put it together where they show how even in the chromosomes, how it affects. He has done some very good work. Unfortunately, the medical profession doesn't believe in this, but there's something going on. All we can say is, hey, something is going on.
Well, this kind of work certainly resonates with our audience and our customers. They appreciate this work, and it does guide them in their holistic journey. So I appreciate you sharing this.
So I will send a few more soon. He has done other parts of the body, chromosomes, something else. I think we have done a couple of them with EBVs. We sent a long time ago, Epstein-Barr virus, how with dark field microscopy, you can see. We have shared that before. So there's a lot of things are happening in the body. We know that because it affects the whole entire human genome. My theory is it goes in and reproduces a copy of the genome as it was, let's say, 2 billion years ago. And then it compares the genome, shows this lesson. So it puts all the genome here, and then it puts the present genome and tells the body, this is what you guys need to do. So it's an educational system. So whatever is up is normalized, whatever is down is increased, and so we bring about homeostasis. That's how I think it's working. It's a completely different way of thinking, but it's very elegant and very simple. You need to treat the whole body, not just some piece here where you have to go to a kidney specialist. No, you need to do it because all are interlinked. It's like the internet. If you cut a cable somewhere, it's going to affect the rest of the flow of information. Same thing here. It's a natural concept. That's how nature works. It's networked. Yeah. Can you see this one? This is the guy just sent me. How of the eyeball, he measures the eyeball, and you see all the red ones disappear.
Yes.
It's cleaned up by Nano. This is the other one he just sent me. And this is about the chromosome he sent me, from all the red ones there. it strengthens the chromosome functions by 19%, it says. And then it strengthens the heart by 62%.
Oh, wow.
All the weakest areas decreased by 100%. So wherever it was weak, it's all taken care of. So here it does with, what is it? The chakras, 17% after taking 5 sprays of nano.
Interesting.
You can see the change, you see?
Yeah.
And then here is lumbar functions by 93%. All the weak areas are decreased. So whichever was causing the problem is decreased. So I'll be sending this to you soon. I haven't even, it just sent me a few minutes ago when I was talking. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing that data, because that actually, reflects upon the discussions on frequency and being able to resonate with that. Unlike being with the RX field and taking medicines, that it decreases the frequency, kind of shuts your body down and kind of masks it over. So to have that as kind of like a total feeling of healing is I think going to resonate with people who are looking for solutions that can actually be of healing. So this is really good data, and being able to have some visuals so people can actually see.
Yeah, they can see that. So that's why this guy, I didn't ask him to do it. He did it himself and he sent me. And I said, wow, that's amazing. See, this is why if you get a cold or a cough, you should let it go through the process, because it's trying to eliminate something rather than interfere with the process. People might get annoyed. Oh, your cold is there. I said, this is the way the body expels what should. It may last a few days or a week, but the body also wants to rest its other organs to repair. That's when it introduces. It's like a sideshow, You're focusing on the cough, but actually body's repairing something in the inside you.
But this is like one thing that people can incorporate right away, and they don't have to like change their whole life around. This formula will certainly meet you where you are at on your healing journey. And some people have asked like, okay, I don't really have anything wrong with me, or that they know of. They don't maybe know about their underlying toxin load, or they don't have any symptoms of disease. Can they still benefit from this formula?
Absolutely, because you don't know when the next bacteria is coming. See, the bacteria, people ask me, how come you took nano for 15 years and still got a cough? I said, bacteria mutates in 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Because it too has to survive with this competition and this environment. Like we change. If there's a traffic, we take a different road. The bacteria does the same thing. So you need to get exposed to the environment. That's why during COVID times, this isolation made it far worse.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving your immune system, your innate immune system, your natural immunity to kind of kick in.
When you go from London to New York, the bacteria that you picked up in London is going to meet the bacteria in New York, and the bacteria in New York may kill most of them. That's why we need innate immunity, and some of them may not. Then your body goes to work. Metadichol Nano-Ojas is common sense. But the most important reason why it works is because it follows the law of nature. The law of nature is this, that the product has to be a part of our environment that you grew up with. So you ate rice, you ate broccoli, you ate wheat, it was all there. Second, you see, nature, the life began in the ocean. We know that. Then it moved to the land. So that's how the vitamin D happened. There was no need for vitamin D inside the sea, because there's enough calcium. But in the land, there was no receptor. So you need the vitamin D receptor. That's how cholesterol became the source to convert cholesterol to vitamin D in the sun. That's how we make vitamin D. But then we decided that we're going to reduce cholesterol with statins and created a whole new set of problems. So that was common sense. But the important thing is our life began in the ocean. And we were in your mother's womb, which is water, placenta. And our product is water. So if you take your weight is 60 kilos, 70% of your body is water. But if you calculate in terms of water molecules, you and I are 99.9% water molecules. Our product is 99.996% water molecules. We are giving water. So water is very critical for life.
Let's talk a little bit about the vitamin D receptor, because that's one of the most fascinating pieces of this formula, along with the other gene expression and nuclear receptor work and vitamin C as well. Like, I want to touch on vitamin D receptors and really it's the key to the immune system. And this formula has a way of upregulating, downregulating, modulating this vitamin D receptor.
Without the sun, there is no life possible. This we need to get. So, it is not, and 65% of all deaths in the world are due to vitamin D deficiency. The idea that you will give vitamin D will solve the problem has not. You need to make it from the sun. Because when you make it from the sun, what you make is the water-soluble vitamin D, not the fat-soluble. What you take as a pill is fat-soluble because it has to go into your stomach, then through the bacteria, in the colon, then it gets to the liver, where it has to make the 125. The liver doesn't work. You don't make the 25-hydroxy. Then it has to go to the kidney, where you make the 125, which is actually the active product. And Metadichol is already active. It doesn't bother about your liver, your kidney, your stomach. The minute you put it in the mouth, it's already gone into the nucleus, already working on vitamin D. It's water-soluble vitamin D. So that's the difference.
How is the vitamin D receptor so important when we have other pathogens trying to invade the body? Do these viruses and bacteria, fungus, do they attach to the vitamin D receptor and Nano's able to kind of knock them off of that receptor? How does that work?
If they have to multiply in the body, then they need to stop the body's defenses. If you want to conquer enemy territory, you have to overcome the defenses of the enemy. The first one that works on innate immunity is vitamin D receptor. So what they do is, they know that vitamin D, if they don't do anything about it, will finish them off. So what they do is they go and bind to the vitamin D receptor. So the vitamin D receptor cannot send signals to the rest of the body. Then they go happily, merrily, and then start multiplying. So what Nano does is, it says, okay, you blocked the vitamin D receptor, I'm going to unblock it. So it unblocks it and activates the vitamin D receptor. And it works both ways, you see, and therefore gets rid of the bacteria. That's why it works in infectious disease very easily. And like this, there are many other nuclear receptors, for example, thyroid receptor, but all these are linked to each other, okay? So if you activate enough of the receptors, which we do, we have shown that at 1 picogram, any cell, including cancer cells, we produce the vitamin D receptor and all the other nuclear receptors. All 49 of them are produced by Nano once it hits your body. So these guys are already it happens in the nucleus. And that's where the signals go and produce the mRNA or the protein that you need. Suppose you need insulin, a signal has to go to the nucleus in chromosome 12, and the nuclear receptor or receptors have to get involved and produce the mRNA, which then becomes the protein insulin. So everything action happens in the nucleus. So we are now in the nucleus. We activate the receptors. So it's not surprising that it works. Coming to vitamin C, which is even critical, is we evolved because of vitamin C. See, man used to produce 40 million years ago. Man used to be able to produce vitamin C. Then one of the genes called GULO stopped working. So there was a lot of free radicals in the body, which led actually to the cell to evolving us into the men and the women of today. Evolution became more possible. So the animals, they were already fully evolved. So they produce vitamin C. You can take a goat and inject malaria into the goat. It'll produce 75 times its level of vitamin C. This is known. Yes, but we lost that ability. But because there were a lot of fruits and vegetables also grew, so you're supposed to eat fruits and vegetables. A lot of people don't, so you don't get enough vitamin C. But what Nano does is it can't activate that gene. It may happen in the next generation, not this generation. This generation doesn't have the working gene. Hopefully the next generation who are using Nano from day one will produce the person who will have this GULO gene, the right one. So it takes the vitamin C we get from foods, which are oxidized, which are about to be thrown out of your system, takes it into the cells and converts to vitamin C. So it produces vitamin C when the body needs it. Whereas the conventional idea is you take 10 grams, but the body can absorb only so much. The rest So that's the difference. So it produces on demand. So once it does that, the body knows what to do with the vitamin C. What the body produces, it knows what to do with it. If you give it something else, it doesn't know what to do with it. There's no lesson it has learned. That's why drugs, they go to the liver, first pass, 95% of them are removed.
Yep. Yes.
See, the chemists like us, we isolate vitamin C and say this is the structure. Now, what we don't know is in what form it was inside the body. But what we know is what we isolate. They may be completely different things. For example, the vitamin C could be a magnesium salt. It could be linked to some phosphorus. We don't know. But by the time we extract, that's what we see. So we think that's the real one. It's not the real one. Maybe not the one. Whereas when the body produces that little amount of vitamin C, voila, things really change. I mean, we have seen people go up as much as 30, 40 fold when they have serious disease.
Wow.
Huge amount. So it may be a humble vitamin, but if the body can produce it, that's the amazing part. So my prediction, which is, may not be worth it, but next 1-2 generations, as people use nano, they will be able to correct this gulo gene, hopefully. And then you have the gulo gene, next time you keep producing vitamin C.
How is it being a lipid that's water soluble? That being that kind of structure is also able to kind of penetrate the nucleus, correct?
Yeah, because the cells are all, lipid. This is the largest organ in the body. It's lipid. So you need a lipid-like molecule to go into the body. So the definition of nuclear receptor is those which are affected by lipids or lipids found in food. That's the definition of nuclear receptor. That's what we use.
Interesting.
People ignored it. They make all kinds of complicated molecules. It doesn't even get in. See, the two ways the signal can go to the nucleus. One, let's say a product like nano can just go to the surface of the cell and bind to somebody and whisper in his ear, please talk to this guy and tell him to produce insulin. That guy says, okay, I got to go through this intermediary. And he says, okay, I will go and tell. And by the time the message goes, is weakened. The signal is weak. Then it's obvious. You meeting a CEO and making your case is far relevant than going through 5 layers and meeting the CEO. This is exactly what it is. So nano does it directly.
It goes straight to the source,
Yeah.
the source that controls everything that's going on in the body.
Correct. That's the software of our body, operating system. Once you manipulate the operating system or help the system work well, then you overcome disease.
And along with the nuclear receptor, you've also done a lot of the genomic and DNA testing. And what was kind of the purpose of that type of testing when you began that? Like to better chemically understand the drivers involved?
No, we see people say, how does it work in which receptor? See, we know it works on nuclear receptors, but which are the genes expressed? So, the scientists have come up with a list of, it's like a cookbook, a list of genes that are important in, for example, in repairing the heart. See, when you get a heart attack, it's cardiomyocytes, they decrease. And body never produces again. Your heart is never the same again. Once you get a heart attack, it's never the same again. But if you can express these genes, they will produce the cardiomyocytes, which will then plug all the holes like we saw in that picture. So we take cardiac cells, but what we need is to take cells in the body which are predominant and convert them to any kind of cell you want, which is what we did. For example, we take fibroblasts, which are, skin cells, add nano, and it produces cardiac cells. We add nano, it produces all the cells that the brain needs, the genes, and fix the brain. That's why we see people with, mental problems improve. So like that, we have done a series like sirtuins. Sirtuins we've shown that all this, it doesn't produce one sirtuin. There are 7 of them. It produces all of them. And there is something called TLR, which is toll receptors, which we just published. Published means it's a preprint. It will be hopefully soon published. And then it produces all 10 of them. And beautifully, such that only one of them it does not produce. It suppresses one of the TLR4, which is very predominant in cancer. So it knows, I don't want TLR. I don't care if the others go up. I want them to go up. Then we also did clock genes. Clock is circadian rhythm genes. You can't mess around with these genes. These are the most critical genes in the body, even compared to everything else. They control everything that happens in the body. When will the body produce insulin? When will you go to sleep? So you can't mess around with it. This product produces those genes in the right proportion by not touching two of them. It keeps them stable. It doesn't mess around with it. It's amazing. So this is, this is the seed of life as far as I'm concerned. So we have published that. Hopefully it will be published soon.
Sorry, where's that going to be published, Raghu? Where are you going for?
I've submitted the Sertuin paper to European Journal of Medicine. They invited me to publish. So
that will be very interesting. That's because that goes back to the as far as frequencies as well. So as far as knowing the circadian rhythm and working with
we have the preprint. You should have the preprint. You can download it. And recently, yesterday, I was invited to become a board member of the European Journal of Cell Biology.
Nice.
It's a very high impact journal. It's like 7 or similar to PLOS, which is about 8.
Yeah.
And these are the same guys previously never accepted my paper. Now they want me to review a paper.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's a feat.
We've added those, Kate, to our website under the studies tab. We've added the 2 preprints of the toll-like receptor paper and the circadian rhythm paper.
The toll receptor is the one that is responsible for innate and adaptive immunity. It is the one on the surface of the cell that recognizes what comes in, bacteria or whatever. And since I produced all of them, they're all active, except number 4, which guys made to keep quiet. And that some of the TLRs are inside the nucleus. So I'm able to also reproduce that. So this is not an ordinary result. It's an extraordinary result.
One of their staff got a hold of Nano and their consciousness has just been raised and they realized, I need this.
It's good. I mean, once it goes there, then it goes mainstream.
Yeah.
All my papers go mainstream. Once a paper goes there, it goes into PubMed automatically. Then they go to that paper and then they begin to see the other papers. That's how it happens.
Exactly.
So the opening has been created for me as predicted by my astrologer in 2008. This is the year 2023, is it? Oh.
We talk about how this formula basically is able to support mitochondrial health. It's able to kind of power up the powerhouse of cells and produce energy. And so some people are like, well, why am I able to sleep better through the night? And maybe they're taking it during the day, maybe they're taking it earlier in the evening. People say, I've had years of insomnia and now I'm finally dreaming. That's pretty interesting. Even though it helps with energy, again, it's going to support you in whatever your body needs. We're all different individuals. We have different body constitutions. So for one person, it might give them that energy boost, but for that other person, it might help with insomnia.
Now, the key is this for sleep, which is very important. Vitamin C is the key to sleep. You see, you have tryptophan, which is amino acid in your body. When you eat foods, you have tryptophan. Tryptophan is converted to serotonin. And serotonin is converted to melatonin. But both need vitamin C. And his body is producing vitamin C for you. Whereas people who don't sleep are not producing vitamins. Even if they take it, it doesn't happen. So the body and the clock is also working the genes. Now you see, the clock sends the signal, says produce vitamin C, get tryptophan, get serotonin, make melatonin, that goes to sleep. So the clock genes are very important. That's why we did that work. But the other work we did, which you have on your site, is Klotho and cancer cells, anti-aging.
Yes.
That is very interesting because Klotho is an anti-cancer molecule the body produces. Second, Klotho is the anti-aging gene. There are companies called Klotho.com and are trying to produce Klotho commercially, inject it in. We take cancer cells, also ordinary cells, 1 picogram of nano. 1 picogram is so small. And it forces the cancer cells to produce Klotho. So the cancer cells, on instructions from nano, produces Klotho, which turns around and kills the cancer cell and reverses.
Yes, the telomere studies and the clotho gene both are just extremely fascinating. And you're turning, I know you just had a birthday, but you're aging backwards.
Last time I did was 48. So, but this week I may have aged 3 years because of the cough. But it'll come back.
Yes, I know you just traveled from overseas. So yeah.
But it does so many things, so many facets in the body. I don't know. I mean, now we just started work on the same TLRs to show how cancer cells produce TLRs. What kind? So if I can show that it produces so and doesn't produce TLR4, this is also the many methods to attack cancer, but all of them have to work in unison. And that's what we're trying to prove. We're trying to show it's all linked.
Wow.
The entire medical and pharma industry is based on one particular gene somewhere. That's not going to work.
And Kate, I remember when we first were introduced, we were exchanging some insights about the stem cell piece. And Raghu, can you extend on that as well? How it is able to help support the body in stem cell production?
Yeah, because it can convert any kind of cells into a pluripotent cell. We have shown with cancer cells. Okay, we have shown with fibroblasts. We have shown with umbilical cord cells. So we have shown that it can make neuronal cells. It can make cardiac cells. What else you need?
Beautiful.
So the stem cells in your body decrease with age. There's not that many left when you age. No? The bone marrow. It still has to go to the bone marrow. It can do that. But if there are things like fibroblasts, which are common cells, and even if you're diseased, you have cancer cells, we can reprogram it and produce any kind of cell we want. And the best part is you don't have a donor. It's your own cell. There is no immunity problem. This is the key. The whole stem cell industry is based on taking a healthy cell from somebody, changing it, injecting it back. Then they put you on immunosuppressants.
Very interesting.
Here, your own cell is being programmed to produce the kind of cell whenever you want. And the clock genes come in at that stage, you see? This is why we did the clock gene.
Yeah.
It's all linked. So, people can't even, nobody can question why the product works. They may not like it. They say you can't make a claim. That's fine. But the science behind it is better than and more powerful than any known drug. Any known drug. I've looked at every drug that I've seen. They don't have this amount of in vitro data, which is backed by in vivo data. People complain, oh, nothing happened to me. This happened to me. So I said, there is something else going on in your body. And this woman is in Thailand. We found out the reason she has not improved that much. She has a host of issues. There is a gene called CCL2. It's an inflammatory gene. Her level is way in the stratosphere. It has come down. So right now it's about 800. But that has to come below 50. And luckily, we have tested in the rats and other studies, it blocks CCL2. We have taken, leukemia cells and showed that our product produces antioxidant enzymes. We're not published it yet, but hopefully. I could publish 500 papers, but it's so exhausting to write.
But your research is amenable to a large audience too. So not only from the medical, which is you're now being editor, but it also it can compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges.
Correct.
So that's why it's exhaustive research that you're doing, but it's so relevant to make an impact for the healthcare field and being able
every problem anybody has, they experience a change, then we have a solution. We have an answer how it works. So each one gives me the answer how it works. Now, I have a case in India where this guy from 2004 had hypertension. His pressure was like 210 by 100, The doctor said, with that level of pressure, your heart should be totally damaged. So when he went for his checkup, nothing was damaged. He's been taking Nano. They didn't know, they couldn't even believe. So it is trying to correct his problem. Is very interesting because he lives in Bombay. Right next to his house is some 23-story building coming up with all the dust and everything. And that's affecting him and increasing his blood pressure because his breathing problems and all that. But when he goes to a place outside Bombay, it disappears.
So Kate, I want to bounce over to you. We haven't really touched base on what your personal journey with Nano-Ojas and what you've noticed when you first started using the formula. Can you share a little bit about that? And, I know we've talked a little bit about how the product kind of empowers you to live a more conscious lifestyle, perhaps like allowing layers of detox to happen to kind of open up your third eye or your pineal gland, and it really has this higher vibration. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. I started using it on Ragu probably 2.5 years ago now. And I just like I was drawn to the product, and then I was, started reading all the papers and going through it. And what resonated with me, what caught my attention immediately, is that the elephants don't get cancer. And so I've known that research for quite a while. And if you're looking at the diet of the elephant, is a lot of it is sugar cane. And so I had a kind of an immediate affinity saying, okay, let's take a look at this. And so I started using it, not knowing that I actually needed anything, but I just was trying to reduce like the supplements and the vitamin D's and the C's and this, and I was in a high pressure job and traveling, all the exposure to different ailments that are coming around in airplanes and such all the time. So I just wanted to kind of be preventative. And so I started taking the sprays, and I was doing it every day and doing it 3 times a day, just as far as knowing that, okay, let's sit back, let's try to, clear out and make sure that we're detoxing and starting, afresh. And so I didn't see any change initially in the beginnings, but I started to notice over the course of, 4 or 5 months that I was like, it's like it was a slow, gradual change. But I noticed that all of a sudden you're like, whoa, my goodness, that, that you are starting to notice that I wasn't getting any colds. I wasn't getting any, the whole COVID thing just passed me by. So knowing that you have to vibrate and keep your body healthy along with it, I believe that the Metadichol has improved my health immensely. I looked at it underneath the microscope. I watched my blood cells underneath that to see that improvement there. And just as far as intuitiveness, as far as as you're saying, your chakras and the vibrations, that I wasn't necessarily keen to that, or that was being so relevant because of the, my medical background, being in pharmaceuticals for 20 plus years, that not understanding that what that effect really has on your whole health became more astute to that, and paying attention to that. So I can tell the difference with mine as far as my intuitiveness has definitely increased, because I'm not sure that my gland wasn't even a little bit of calcified. So that has cleaned itself out a bit. And so that's my personal journey with it. So when I started to see the differences on my skin and internally and on my blood work and watching my blood underneath the microscopes, I started to tell other people about it. And the difference that I see in others, I'm not a healthcare provider. I only do it really just on a humanitarian side. Of if someone is in ill or needing it, then I introduce it to them and say, let's give this a shot. And usually those, and I have to, as I started at the beginning of this talk, is that I have to educate them that they're going to want to do this, and that you have to give respect to what's actually sitting on the counter there, and being able to plant that seed, and mentally, but also so that they plant the seed in their bodies as well. So I have seen quite a bit of change in the others that are in my arena. And so a lot of them are healthcare professionals that are using it in their practices and such, so that they've incorporated it and with their patients. And so it's definitely made a difference. And I'm a believer, and it's something that you'll take every day for until forever. And who knows, but may end up having grandkids that are going to be the descendants that actually have been exposed to the molecule for quite a long time.
As we wrap up, I want to one kind of encompassing question that I'd like you to answer. Why do people need this formula? And with the state of medicine today, why is it so important that they need Nano-Ojas, that they need Metadichol?
If you eat balanced food, less processed food, unprocessed food, then you have, healthy outcome. Western diet is over processed. There are things there that shouldn't be there. So they create inflammation. So the first step is to reduce inflammation, because you eat every day, you're going to get inflammation. So you take nano, at least it will keep it under control. Then bring about a change in lifestyle, the food you eat, which is the second critical part. The food lifestyle has to change. Go out more in the sun and do exercise. Those are other three things we have to do. And then in the meantime, you have nano to take care of you. And it's also going to prevent diseases over a lifetime, like diabetes, for example. Diabetes doesn't happen in one day. It's a 10-year process, 5 year, 6 year, whatever. Nano can prevent that because nano reduces insulin resistance. And this is the key. Insulin resistance leads to every known disease in man. So that's the reason why you need nano.
Yes, there's a lot of discussion in the functional medicine space about insulin resistance and metabolic health and how those really play a key role in disease. And
We have known this for 10 years, So.
yes. And also disease being like a cellular phenomenon. And that's how Nano-Ojas kind of approaches the, Metadichol, looking at the disturbance of cells and focusing on the microbiome versus like the conventional disease model that doesn't necessarily put a lot of emphasis on the immune system as a whole.
Yeah, the key is also that, you need nano to build your microbiome. It needs the vitamin D receptor. There's also published work. All this is known. Wherever you tell me, we have an answer. But people can't wrap around that it is so simple. This may be the problem. Like my grandfather used to say, there's no difference between Einstein and me, except he said 3 letters and 2 mathematical symbols. E equals mc squared. So 3 letters equals his mathematical symbol. 2 is that's the only difference. That's a huge difference.
And just to continue on with that, so as far as why I suggest them to use it, is that our medical system is always looking at reactive. Again, like you've already had to be diagnosed with something, or you're starting to already have. So then we try to throw a bunch of the kitchen sink at it to try to repair it. And this is as far as taking a look back and saying, all right, let's pull back the covers here and see, let's start with the basics and start building back up. And so this becomes a preventative. So to be preventative, we have to make sure that we're healing all of the reactives that we've been dealing with. And so in Western medicine, we have is that we're very reactive. And so it's a mind shift of saying, okay, let's be proactive and make it simple. So it should be for everyone.
We have to also understand that animals, plants, they live hundreds of years without disease. How do they do that? We need to understand that. They tell you, and this is from the plants. And it's like elephants, they live 75 years without cancer because they produce a lot of P53. And nano produces a lot of P53. We have shown that. We can make many copies of P53. So everything that the medical society wants, and with one drug that is patented, we already have. And safe. The critical thing is safe.
I think that's the key, that it's safe. It's something that everybody can use, anybody of any age. And I think the key is also that it's able to work at a cellular level. There's not a lot of products. Nowadays,
cells communicate with each other. So if one cell gets better, the other cell says, hey, what did you do? I took nano in. So, okay, let me do that. That's how it happens. They communicate with each other. This is the key.
It's a journey, and there's lots to understand and know, but just have to start with just taking one step at a time and learning it. So start to see the improvements in people's lives and makes a difference.
Yeah, it's truly been a pleasure meeting with both of you. And, this journey of sharing this remarkable formula, helping them go from zero hope to full optimism and to be part of that is something out of this world. I truly feel that it's been kind of by a higher design that, nano came into my life, and I've been on this journey and sharing this with people. So thank you so much, Dr. Raghu, Kate. I appreciate your time and all of your insights, and I look forward to partnering with you to share this with your network of people. And I'm sure that we'll be meeting again for another interview, hopefully soon, because once the people hear this, they're always going to want to know more. So this is just the one of many.